Thank you, Bob.
Thank you, Mickey. Wonderful to be here with you.
Yes. I was just do an introduction in Japanese, and then we're going to speak in English, okay? 皆さんありがとうございます。このセッションはですね、インテル、コーポレーションの、CEO であります、ロバート・スワンさん、すごくですね、昔からの友人でございまして、僕はいつもボブって呼んでますので、I call you Bob, is that okay? Yes. ということで、このセッションもですね、英語で進めさせていただきたいと思いますので、日本語の方は、通訳の、トランシーバーをつけていただければというふうに思います。So, Bob, thank you for joining Rakuten Optimism conference. We have so many audience today.
Yeah, it's huge. It's wonderful to be here, Mickey. Thanks for including me.
Yeah, but just talking about our, personal history, that we have been friends for so long, right? It's a small world. We never expected we're going to start, working together for 5G.
We kind of learned quite a bit from each other over the years about how to use technology to disrupt commerce and to disrupt payments. But you're right, I never thought we'd have the opportunity to be here kind of working together to disrupt networking and communication. So it's a real pleasure for me.
Yeah. So before becoming the CEO of Intel, Bob was senior executive and CFO for the one of the biggest e-commerce company called eBay. And so we have been talking about how we can partner through internet shopping and e-commerce. And now we are about to disrupt the telecom industry together. But Intel has not been kind of not really the kind of driving force for telecom industry up to now. But it seems like you're about to change this, right?
Yeah, well, I think the way the company has evolved over time is, it's been a cultural company built on innovation. And the innovation has really been developing the microprocessor that's gone inside of the PC, and then the microprocessor that's gone inside of the server. But the way we see the world today in light of technology disruption all around us is we see the opportunity to take the microprocessor essentially inside of everything. Because more and more today, everything looks like a computer in some way, shape, or form, whether it's your home, whether it's your automobile, whether it's a retail store, whether it's a factory. With the rate of innovation, not the least of which is 5G, it's created all sorts of opportunities for us to think about how we can play a bigger role in bringing the technologies that we've developed along the way to new areas. And the network, the communications is an area that's been relatively big for us over the last several years. It's grown extremely fast, but we think we're only just getting started with 5G, and with our partnership, we think it's only going to get better.
So everybody, I think, remember your TV commercial, Intel Inside, or in Japanese, Intel 入ってる. But I think it is going to be not only in the personal computer, it is going to be everywhere. So maybe Intel everywhere, right?
Yeah, it was one of the best brand creations of all time, I think, the Intel Inside brand. And how we think about it today is really trying to evolve it a little bit, stretch it. It's not just for us. We don't see it just being the CPU inside anymore, but we talk about XPU. And an XPU includes different kind of architectures required to meet the increasingly demanding workloads which exist in data center and network operations. So we think not just about the CPU anymore, but the GPU, artificial intelligence chips, FPGAs, memory. So more and more silicon-based technology, which is our core, extending what it is we put inside. And then to your point, the things that all these technologies go inside are exploding. Just the number of devices and the way technology is impacting our worlds today. The way we view it, as I said before, is everything looks like a computer. Right. And it just needs Intel's ingredients inside to make those computers smarter and more effective. So that's how we see the world playing out these days.
Right. But so you're going to evolve from CPU, the silicon company, to more diversified portfolio of your product, as well as to it seems like to the service company as well. And how are you kind of managing this evolvement? You should have, many projects on your table right now. How are you going to prioritizing, and how are you managing this?
Yeah, well, first, it's the company was so successful for so long, generating over a 90% market share of a CPU inside of a PC in a data center. That's the good news. The challenging aspect of that is when you have 90% market share, the prospects for growth are somewhat limited. So as we think about doing more things, it does start with leveraging our core competencies, our core technology, and taking it into new places. But it does require, for us, a little bit of a cultural shift. We have a very strong, innovative culture, but when you define your market to be much bigger, not a CPU, but it's silicon, the market size we have today is the biggest market size we've seen in the history of the company. So it's a $300 billion TAM, and we don't really think about having 90% share of it. We think about having a 25% share. That's much more fun. The energy inside the company when the prospects to grow, as you know, is just much more energizing. If you have a 90% share, you think about how am I going to protect? When you have a 25% share, you think about how am I going to grow? How am I going to evolve? How am I going to take my customer inputs more effectively so I make sure that I'm solving their solutions? So it's just a much more energizing culture to think about the market and this incredible demand for data and what it can mean for the opportunities for our company.
Right. So I know that you have so many very ambitious the project on the table. But can you give us the few, outstanding project you're now so excited about, for 5G era?
Yeah. I think there's really three key technology inflections that we see that are going to help evolve the nature of compute in the future. One is obviously 5G. Second is artificial intelligence and machine learning. And third is autonomous systems. So systems that leverage 5G technologies and AI to allow you to do new and different things. So those are the three really emerging technologies. And then we look at how those technologies are going to influence or create opportunities for us. In 5G in particular, and the partnership that we've developed, the biggest opportunity that we see is really to cloudify the network. So with 5G, we see this convergence coming of a compute environment and a network or comms environment coming together. And as these networks converge, we see more and more compute moving from the data center or the cloud and moving out to the network. So you have much smarter networks where more compute can happen. So with 5G, what that will do is it'll create or enable lots of new opportunities when you have higher speeds, lower latency, bigger pipes. It does create all sorts of innovation at the edge that we see as new and better opportunities. So I'd say first, it's the cloudification of the network. And second, it's the applications that are created as a result of that. And the one for us that's probably most exciting is autonomous driving.
I see. Okay, so maybe we just focus on talking about 5G, particularly the partnership with Rakuten Mobile and Intel for a few minutes. And then we can talk about other exciting projects such as AI and autonomous driving and so forth. But I just wanted to let you know that to the audience, now Rakuten is creating the first fully virtualized crowd network, which is very, very disruptive. And many companies thought this is impossible. And when we announced this fully virtualized network, at MWC in 2018, last year, some big network equipment companies issued a white paper. This is impossible. But now they didn't realize how strong our partnerships, and with your new FPGA, the board ですね, super high spec board you guys developed, it became possible. So can you explain how important this project is for Intel and how disruptive this concept is for the society?
Yeah. Well, first, I would say that a lot of the progress that we made along the way was somewhat the foundation of your convictions. Because everybody along the way did say that it wasn't possible, and I think with your conviction, with your vision, it gave us the collective desire to prove the industry wrong. But at its core, this cloud-native mobile network is really, as you said, the idea of taking a fully virtualized from radio access network to the core network, launched on an innovative 5G architecture is significantly disruptive. Because in effect, what it allows us to do is provide greater data services at a much lower cost than what consumers can get today, and that creates a flywheel. Once you can provide through technology a differentiated service at a lower cost, you get a real flywheel of innovation going. And that's how we see this relationship, this architecture, the role 5G can play with your very innovative design. It will allow us just to deliver something that consumers pay much more today for less of a service in a very data-rich environment. So the application is appealing. The technology is there. The partnership is relatively strong, and we think we're only just getting started.
Right. And then, definitely the synergy between the software, which we're developing together with Altiostar. Altiostar is our kind of group portfolio company, which does the software for what we call radio access network. With your FPGA, the board on our edge seems like working extremely well, right? And but for the future, for Intel, for telecom industry, what do you want to do?
Well, again, first I would say that, as I mentioned before, we are at our core a compute company. It's just where we see compute happening in the future. Well, again, it won't just be on the PC, and it won't just be in the data center, because with 5G, we really do believe that the future of compute is going to happen at the network and the edge. So we've built our company by deploying compute architectures in new arenas, and we believe the network of the future is going to be where the lion's share of compute happens, and we want to play there at the same level that we do with the PC and with the data center, which is the primary source of our revenue for the company today. But in addition to that, in essence, this fast 5G network that we're building, what it will do is stimulate innovation. Because once you get to high speed, low latency with compute at the edge, which essentially means there's no latency at all, once that happens, the rate of innovation that will be developed to use that capability, out in devices beyond the edge, is where we see the next wave of growth. So again, the role we see that the cloudification of the network and the shifting of compute out to the network and the edge, and that is a significant opportunity for our company, and we are making big investments with you to ensure that we bring it to life.
So it seems like everybody will have their own AI in their palm, in their smartphone, and the smartphone does not to be super high spec in order to enjoy all these advanced AI functionalities or services, right?
And that smart AI that's in your phone will be interacting with the base station down the road, the vehicle that you're in, the vehicle that's coming the other way, and the smart city in which you're driving in or being driven in. So the connectivity of all these different computes in which everything is going to have AI built into it is going to be extremely attractive for not just advancing the things that we're able to do, but also, you know, for the good of the society. I mean, we view this as a very attractive proposition for the good of society. And you mentioned it, Mickey, in your opening comments, and I'll use autonomous driving as the example. When we look at autonomous driving or level 4, level 5 autonomous driving, we look at it as really two separate but related revolutions. First, and maybe most importantly, is the safety revolution. The ability to more effectively use 5G infrastructure and improved latency, artificial intelligence, and computer vision to make the roads much safer for people to drive is a real significant revolution that we see enabled by the combination of 5G and AI. Secondly, it's a revolution related to mobility, just that, you know, our ability to get around in new and more efficient and more effective ways to free up our time and energy to do different things. 5G and AI are enabling autonomous driving, which we believe is a way to revolutionize safety and to revolutionize mobility.
So when it is going to happen? When, you know, for example, our friend Elon Musk, Elon will say, okay, Mickey, it is going to take in 2021. Some people say it's going to take a little bit longer, but it will come. And people think it may happen in more kind of, how do you call it, well-organized city, such as maybe Las Vegas or Singapore, but it will be very difficult for more crowded cities, such as some cities in India. Mm-hmm. How do you think, you know, the speed of real, you know, how do you call it, adoption of the autonomous driving?
Yeah. Well, first, I have to say, a couple weeks ago, I was in Israel on the streets of Jerusalem on a test drive with our latest Mobileye technologies that were developed, which essentially would be L4-like kind of innovation. And we were driving through the streets of Israel, which are about as chaotic as it gets anybody in the world. And on the whole 20-minute drive, not once did the gentleman behind the wheel have to put his hands on the steering wheel. So I do think that, I heard you earlier that some believe maybe 3 years, some believe maybe 10. My sense is it's going to be somewhere in the middle. And I do think it's going to start with more services like robo-taxi before you have broad-based penetration for automobiles. Because in effect, the compute capacity that's going to be required for an automobile before 5G, you know, you need to have a lot of compute in the vehicle, which would be relatively expensive. Until our project gets off and fully deployed and you can leverage the local network and the compute in the local network, it's going to require putting that compute in the automobile. For broad-based adoption, you can't put that amount of compute in a vehicle in the near term. But with the advent of 5G and the convergence at the network, with improved latency, the ability to begin to deploy autonomous driving technologies where you can use some of the compute capacity at the network edge as opposed to having to put it in the automobile will be, I think, an accelerant. So I would say somewhere between the maybe 3-year and the 10-year horizon.
So just want to make sure to the audience, level 4 L4 is driver is there, but they're not touching the wheels, right?
Yes.
And the level 5 is a complete driverless car. And would you please elaborate a little bit more about the mobile eye and how they are different from Alphabet Waymo or Uber autonomous driving initiatives? What is the mobile eye doing?
So Mobileye was first. It was an acquisition that we made 2 years ago this month, and what they are is the leading computer vision technology and safety algorithm combined for initially L1, then L2, then L2 plus, and they're moving through each stage of autonomous driving, and each stage along the way. There's more learning, and that learning happens from the consumption of data, with the consumption of data to build out the mapping networks that allow you to be safer and safer as you go. So they start with computer vision technology at its core, and an AI algorithm that's all built around safety. So they've been around for a while, and what we're trying to do is leverage their technology, which is what we call seeing the path. So as you're driving down the street, you're consuming data from all sorts of different sources, primarily through computer vision. You see that path, and you interact with the mapping technology that you built over time to chart the path to ensure that you can drive in a safe and efficient way. And then what they've done along the way is try to develop in essence, a safety algorithm. And we're trying to get this safety algorithm adopted around the world as a safe, effective way to use autonomous driving, no matter who develops the technology, but try to get a safe, consistent framework and standard for how to enable autonomous driving in a safe and effective way.
Right. And the other thing you have been really talking about, Intel become sort of AI data company as well. And this AI data company initiative and your autonomous driving initiative, including mobile, are they related or?
Well, the intersection of 5G, of AI, and of autonomous systems is they're all driven and enabled by more and more data. So those, when we talk about the evolution of our company from a PC-centric company to a data-centric company, that evolution is really driven by this incredible, insatiable demand that we all have, whether it's as consumers or as enterprises, this insatiable demand that we have for creating more and more data, to use that data and analyze it to make it more relevant, to store it nearby so we can access it quickly, and the ability to move that data around faster and faster and faster. So in that world, data is what is driving incremental demands for really three things that we do. This insatiable demand for data is driving more and more compute. It's driving more and more technology for storage. And it's driving more and more requirements at the network edge to be able to handle the amount of data that you have to deal with. So in this world where 5G, AI, and autonomous systems, they all get smarter as they have more data requires more compute requires more storage, and more data requires you to be able to move that data around faster and faster, so connectivity of the network is extremely important. So we talk about, Mickey, going from a PC-centric world to a data-centric world by pushing forward on these three critical technologies of 5G, AI, and autonomous driving. And they are interrelated because the common theme of all of them is they need to create more data, and that data needs to be compute, stored, analyzed, and retrieved faster than it ever was required before.
When I talk with some people related into the mobility industry, they all talk about, the autonomous driving need to take place in the vehicle, and 5G is kind of irrelevant because the compute needs to be on the board of the car. But I think in Japan, many people think that 5G will be a very, very important factor for autonomous driving to take place. What do you think about this?
I completely agree with you. And I think, again, for things like robo-taxi, where you can afford to put a lot of compute into it's not really a technology thing. I think it's an economic thing. So if you, for a robo-taxi, you can afford to put a lot of compute horsepower into a vehicle because you're going to monetize that vehicle seven days a week, 24 hours a day. But to drive broad-based adoption of autonomous driving across a bigger and bigger percentage of vehicles, you can't afford to put that much compute in the car itself. At the same time, you can't afford to send data up to the cloud and get it back. So what 5G is going to do, and the work that we're doing to build 5G where there's more and more compute at the network edge, that means autonomous cars are going to be able to send signals not up to the cloud, but to the network that has enhanced compute capacity. And that will allow you to put less compute in the automobile, because how you can leverage 5G at the network, at the edge, so you don't have to put so much compute in a vehicle. And the cost of that compute coming down and the less requirements in the vehicle itself is what will drive broader-based adoption for cars.
Right. So it seems like the Intel's perspective is slightly different from other autonomous driving companies, I suppose.
I think it's very similar for an application like robo-taxi, but for broad-based adoption, we believe a little bit more about the importance of 5G.
That's fantastic. And then maybe lastly, I want to talk about how are you trying to change the culture of Intel. You have been, senior executives of eBay for a very long time, and we're talking about C2C marketplace and B2C e-commerce, and now we moved to this kind of a hardcore, tech company. Initially it was more hardware company. Now you're evolving to the more service and software.
Yeah.
What are you thinking about the importance of the culture of the company, and if you can share some initiatives you're working on it?
Well, I mean, first, we have a wonderful culture that is, last year was our 50th anniversary as a company, and it was the best year in the company's 50-year history. And to be in the tech world and keep that kind of momentum and stay ahead of the game requires a culture of innovation. And that at its core is what we have. But at the same time, as I talked earlier about our served market, we just view it as much bigger than we ever have. So if you define yourself as having 95% market share, that requires a certain kind of culture, a certain kind of mentality. But we've defined the world very differently. We've defined our served market bigger than we ever have, and therefore it requires a bit of an evolution of a very special culture to be much more customer-centric than we've ever been, to be much more competitively aware than we've ever been, and to be much better risk takers than we've ever been. And it's simply because if you have 90% share, by definition, your customers don't have a lot of choice. And if you have 90% plus market share, by definition, there's not a whole lot of competition. But when you redefine your served market and you have 25% share, customers have a lot of choice. There's all sorts of competition that you need to protect what you do while disrupting what they do. And that requires a much more customer-obsessed mindset. in the company. It requires us to not compete against each other, but to compete against the competition outside of our four walls. And it does require us to be comfortable taking more risk and being able to fail quickly and learn from those failures. And again, it's trying to evolve a culture that's very special, but at a time when our ambitions are bigger than they've ever been.
So it seems like a re-edge is going to be very, very, very important project for Intel. Because now we are talking about most of the computation will take place on edge instead of the handset. Right? Of course, handset will, very important, but for I think for Intel, the edge strategy is going to be a critical project for the 5G era. Right?
Absolutely.
Yeah, and then now hopefully this Rakuten Mobile project is the first edge project, I suppose. Is that right?
It's trying to take this concept called network edge and bring compute out from the cloud and the data center out to the edge to enable all sorts of things. So we see a very exciting future for our joint project, and I think to use maybe the words that you used to kick off the session, we look forward to walking together with our Rakuten colleagues in disrupting network edge.
Right. So I guess this is not disruptive, but this is like a transformative, the project to redefine the role of the network from connectivity to computing.
Compute.
Mm-hmm. Right. So unfortunately, we've run out of time. So can you give the final message to the audience today?
Yeah, I think first, as I mentioned, we see this insatiable appetite for data to whether it's new applications for consumers or whether it's digital transformations in all your respected companies. From that, we see this incredible opportunity to build the technologies that can help in an increasingly data-centric world. And in that, for us, it's a lot about forming the right partnerships with the right players, like Intel with Rakuten, to bring these new technologies to the network edge to make society a better place. So the future, last year was our 50th anniversary. We think we're only just getting started in terms of the role that technology can play in evolving society. And thank you very much for the opportunity to be with you today.
Okay. Let me summarize in Japanese in 1 minute. 最後に日本語でちょっとサマリーをさせていただきますと、インテルが今楽天と一緒に始めてますエッジコンピューティングというものがあらゆるですねさまざまな計算がエッジコンピューティングエッジサーバーの上でできるようになるだろうと。これが 4G と 5G の大きな違いの上の一つであって、ここにオートノマスドライビングの含めた自動運転も含めた AI が乗ってくるでしょうと。そういう意味においてはですね、このネットワークというのは単なるディスラプションではなくて、本当にネットワークをつなげるネットワークからいわゆるコンピューティング、しっかりとした計算ができて人工知能が動くネットワークへの革命である。よって単に速いとか単に遅延がないということ以上にですね、ネットワーク自体が巨大な AI になり巨大なコンピューティングになるネットワークというのを今インテルとそれから楽天モバイルで作ろうとしていると、このようにご理解いただければいいかなと思います。その上でインテルという本当に 95% 以上のマイクロプロセッサーをシェアを持っている会社がそのいわゆるパソコンだけじゃなくてあらゆるもののデータコンピューティングのシェアをさらに増やしていきたいということで楽天モバイルのこのプロジェクトに参加をしているというふうにご理解いただければというふうに思います。最後になりますけど本当にお忙しい中ですねこの楽天オプティミスカンファレンスに今日の朝マレーシアから飛んできていただきまして参加してくれましたロバート・スワン CEO に大きな拍手をよろしくお願いします。Thank you very much, Bob. That's great. Thank you. That's good.